All right. So recently, a young lady came on the Daily Wrap Up Crew podcast, and she mentioned that Black Americans were dirty. She mentioned dirty Black Americans, right? And she also indicated that she was of Haitian descent, right? Then not too long before that, I watched a video from one of my favorite YouTubers, Crimson Cure, and she highlighted an instance where a Russian man was visiting various African countries and then just pulling hoes. He was just pulling broads and smashing them on the spot, right? And it was a pretty shameful thing for native continental Africans. It's pretty shameful on their part to be exposed this way, right? And so she did the video as kind of, is this your king type of situation. And I peeped that. You know what I mean? And so this topic on the diaspora, for years pretty much, since I've been hearing about it, since it's been bubbling up, I've been very, very hesitant to touch, because I feel like it, in a way, the topic in and of itself kind of forces you to choose a side, because there's instances within this topic that are so visceral enough for you to cut with a knife, and it's hard to be neutral about it. It's hard to be neutral. It's hard to not have an opinion about it. It's hard to just brush it off and not give a fuck, because there's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything, and there's a reason certain people are the way they are. There's certain external circumstances and historical circumstances that lead up to someone being the way they are. You know what I mean? You can't ignore it, and you got to give it the respect that it deserves. And so in this particular instance, I want to talk about the Diaspora War, the FBA ADOS and the Africans versus the FBA ADOS versus the Africans in the Caribbean. I want to talk about this. I want to break this down so it can forever and consistently be broke. Black Americans have had a number done on them psychologically. You know what I mean? Brief. I'm talking about so brief. So it's not even a brief history lesson. It's a history lesson. But you think about it, you got slavery, a 400-year institution. Got it. Boom. Do your research, right? American chattel slavery. And then you have feminism and welfare circumventing the civil rights era, right, in the 60s and 70s. And then you have the crack era of the 80s. You know what I mean? You have a people in a land under these kind of conditions who are still trying to define their own culture. So that's Black Americans. That's the not the brief history, the history on Black Americans. You know what I mean? But colonialism hit Africans and Caribbeans. I call them Caribbeans. Just for the sake of this conversation, let's just call them Caribbeans. Colonialism hit Africans and Caribbeans differently than it hit Black Americans. Most African and Caribbean countries are third world. You know what I mean? And so, being mainly agricultural in third world, opportunities are at minimal. Opportunity for income and quality of living is at a minimum. And that also plays. Poverty plays a big part. Poverty is everything to your psychology. So in a lot of these third world countries, white people are seen as quote unquote opportunity, a way out. And so the beauty standard. The beauty standard in most of these third world countries is different, as in America, whereas God is the way God made you isn't good enough. In these third world countries, is the way God made you is fine, but if you want to look this way, you'll get an advantage, you'll get a leg up, right? And this is how you have things like bleaching, and so let's identify who the ADOS and the FBA are, the ADOS/FBA are. And let's identify the Africans and the Caribbeans. So the ADOS/FBA is basically ADOS standing for African Descendants of Slaves, and you could /FBA Foundational Black Americans, right? The identity is rooted in specific justice claim of U.S. chattel slavery. Because their original ethnic identities were erased, Black Americans, quote unquote, is the ethnic identity. And then you have the Africans and the Caribbeans, rooted in a specific national flag, i.e. Haitian, Nigerian, etc. And they often arrive in the U.S. with their pre-colonial or post-colonial pride intact. which can lead to a quote-unquote model minority position, distancing themselves from Black American stigmas to navigate the U.S. racial hierarchy. So yeah, I like the way they put that, U.S. racial hierarchy. That's pretty much what it is. It's not colorism, it's not racism, it's a racial hierarchy. So this is the core of the tension. It's lineage versus nationality. The psychological number done on Black Americans, the divergent traumas. While both groups suffered under white supremacy, the mechanisms of the psychological warfare differed significantly. The Black American experience is systematic erasure, total deculturation. Unlike the Caribbean or Africa, where Black people remained the majority, Black Americans had names, languages, and religions stripped. This created an existential grief underneath their cultural confidence. This is why state level engineering, the Moynihan Report of 1965, pathologized Black families as quote unquote matriarchal to blame them for poverty. And yet, once again, the single Black motherhood epidemic in the Black community. You know what I'm saying? It's a growing problem. So you had the Moynihan Report in 1965. I actually want to look into that. I've heard it before. I've heard it deep dug before, and I want to deep dive myself. The man in the house rule. Welfare policies literally incentivize the removal of fathers from the home. I've experienced this firsthand on 2 occasions. We need not go into the side stories for the sake of time, but I've experienced that firsthand. Yes, the crack era, a domestic war that decimated male leadership through a 100-to-1 sentencing disparity, crack versus powder cocaine, creating a generation of state orphaned children. So the psychological number. So this is the plight of Black people in America, right? The Black American, right? So now let's talk about the Africans and the Caribbeans. The African and the Caribbean experience. Colonial subjugation, preservation of roots. Colonialism suppressed but rarely severed cultural roots. Of course, because you're in the country, you can't erase. If you're the minority, you can't erase the culture of the majority. That's not going to happen, right? So they suppress it. They play on the psychology and suppress it. So people still keep their native languages. They speak Creole and Igbo and Twi. Colonial miseducation. Many immigrants arrive with imported disdain. Colonial curricula often framed U.S. Blackness as pathological or ghetto, quote unquote, to prevent Pan-African solidarity. So they already come to this country with the implanting that Black Americans just ain't it, and which is fucked up. Migration hierarchy. Immigrants often view the U.S. through a scarcity opportunity lens. To them, whiteness isn't just an oppressor, it's a global passport to economic exit. That's deep. See, this is what I was talking about, with the whole third world situation. You know what I mean? People from these third world countries, when you live in this kind of poverty, it's like you just grasping at straws, anything to find a way out. And so yeah, whiteness isn't just an oppressor, it's a global passport. It's crazy. Let's talk about the beauty standards and the dirty trope. So the young lady, she mentioned dirty Black Americans in the video. Let's talk about it. The term dirty Black American used in the video is a physical manifestation of a psychological scar. Let's talk about it. Beauty as an economic signal. In post-colonial nations, Africa and Caribbean, skin bleaching is often a rational though destructive response to a corrupt incentive structure where lighter skin correlates to class access. So the doll test legacy. Black Americans, the 180 degrees Celsius heat of Jim Crow legally enforced Eurocentric standards. Straightening hair wasn't vanity, it was often a requirement for employment and safety. Yeah, like imagine being sent home because your hair was too nappy. Like what? Like when you think about it, it sounds crazy, but this was a reality for a lot of people for a long time. Internalized anti-Blackness, the disdain expressed by the woman in the video is a distinction-making tactic. So ultimately, the tension is a trauma competition. So this whole diaspora war, FBA ADOS versus Caribbean African, this is all a trauma competition. That's basically what this is. Black Americans feel their unique 400-year struggle is being erased by quote-unquote newcomers who benefit from the civil rights movement that they bled for. Immigrants feel they are being judged by a nativist lens and that their own struggles with third world poverty and colonialism are being ignored. So it's not Black American versus African, it's plantation colonialism versus overseas colonialism. It's still colonialism altogether. And both systems were designed to interrupt Black solidarity by making groups fight over scraps of dignity. scraps of dignity. This is crazy. Provided by the dominant hierarchy. We're fighting for scraps of dignity. This is crazy. This is crazy.